Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I like. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Blacklist and Rush Hour. Starting off with The Blacklist, we had the continuation of that newly formed alliance between Reddington and Scottie. Which, very interestingly enough, at the beginning of the episode, we kind of got to see Scottie in action when she was doing her thing. It kind of shows you just how vicious she can be when it's time to get the job done. And she's basically saying like, oh, she doesn't do this out for like money. She's not trying to be sick and she get any sick and twisted enjoyment out of it. That basically something happened to her, and it's just kind of made her the way she is now. That she doesn't even get a good night's sleep anymore. We end up finding out that thing is the fact that she had a son that, it all points to the fact is that he died, but she kind of didn't really go into details about it, but, I'll get to that eventually. But I did like the line that Reddington said to her. He's like, Scottie, I never liked you. Just looking at you makes my toes curl. And it's like, wow, I've never really heard him really talk with such disgust for another person. But essentially, because she was bringing up the fact that she's like, what about Tom? Because, they're working together. It's like, he's like, because Tom kind of forced his way into the situation. Reddington didn't want him to join up, but he was a part of this anyway. Because basically, it's like, Tom's a part of this, and she's like, he still blames me for Liz's death, and he's like, I still blame you for Liz's death, but it's like the one I want now is Alexander Kirk. So it's like, I kind of put my issues with you aside, which interestingly enough, Alexander Kirk is played by the same actor who plays Kai Proctor on Banshee. The moment I saw, I was like, Kai, that's so crazy. It's just, I don't know, this is like the only other thing I've ever seen him in besides Banshee. I'm not saying it's the only thing he's ever done, but it's just like, this is my first time seeing it outside of Banshee, that's all. But we're still not 100% clear on why exactly he wanted Liz. Still haven't gotten that answer. Maybe we'll get it next episode. But this episode was very interesting because we have two parties, specifically the FBI having to join forces with Scottie's people. And it's like, why would we join up with them? They're the ones that killed Liz. It's like, screw them. It's just like two enemies having to come together to work together for a common goal. Even have freaking Solomon coming back, and it's like, wow, I thought Reddington would have tracked you down and killed you by now, but it's like, apparently not. I guess Scottie's kind of kept him well hidden and protected, so maybe that's why, but it's just like, I don't know. And there was also that situation with Scottie touching Agnes, and when they were in the hospital, like, he came into the room, and she came into the room, and she was holding her, and I was like, wow, why would you do that? It's a little stupid. Like, Tom already dislikes you because he pretty much blames you for Liz's death. It's like, you touching his child like that, it's just an easy way to eventually lead to you getting killed. Granted, later on, like, Tom kind of goes and almost strangles her because, like, Agnes, like, the hospital was hit. There were some people that was killed. I think it was like a nurse. Not that many casualties, but it's because Alexander came and hit it. It seemed like, okay, maybe she's playing some sick, twisted game, that Scottie was playing some sick, twisted game and took Agnes, but it's like, she did take her, but out of protection, because she heard that Kirk was making moves because he was trying to track down a baby. Once again, still don't know what this is all about, but hopefully we will at some point. But essentially, they needed to get Kirk to come out of hiding, and the best way to do that was by a senator named the Senator Diaz, by getting, like, because apparently Kirk was going to give him like a crap ton of money and basically finance him running for president, so he could pay off the right people to be elected. And so basically the plan was to steal his money, which basically led to like Tom, the lady that's a part of Scottie's team, and Solomon basically hitting the bank that's connected to the money. And basically they won't be able to, essentially the whole crime was like a front, so that basically they get stuff riled up, the police get called in, and the FBI, who, like I said, is part of this whole team now, eventually ends up coming in there and kind of actually going after what they really after, like steal something like, okay, this is what we're after, but really it's not. It's kind of, to get people questions like, why would they steal something like that? It's not really even that valuable. I don't even remember what it was that they actually stole. But during the altercation, there was a little girl that was shot, which interestingly enough, Tom ended up, rushing to her aid. And it does make me wonder, would Tom have really acted the way he did if he didn't have a daughter of his own? Was that just kind of his parental side kicking in? or I'd like to kind of give Tom the benefit of the doubt, seeing a child get hurt, it's like screwing over an adult, that's one thing, but screwing over a child, that's just like, hurting an adult is one thing, but hurting a child's another thing. So I feel like to his mind, he would never have done that anyway. But I feel like him being a father right now is a big contributing factor. But was able to luckily get the girl some help. So I did like, when everything was said and done, because basically they had to go to essentially track down the guy in Germany because they needed his retinal scan to get access to the money. Once again, working with Solomon, and basically they went to a drugstore or something to get some solution to basically, because he was knocked out because of the poison that Tom had given him. Tom ended up kind of giving him too much. And, he wasn't dead, but it wasn't, they weren't able to get a good retinal scan, so they needed the drugs. And it took me by surprise when he basically shot Solomon. Granted, I thought he would have done a little bit more to ensure that Solomon was dead, because it's like, he's a cockroach. You can't expect can't expect a cockroach to be dealt with just like that. It's like, no, you need to stomp them out, essentially. It's like, because he ended up shooting him because he's like, I still, even if we're on the safe side, I still blame you for Liz's death because you don't want to attack our wedding. He's like, you should be thankful. Just know that, your wife's in a better place or something. I was like, you got the nerve to say that before I can really even 100% think that. Tom pulled a gun out and shot him. I was like, wow. He's like, this is for Liz, and walked away. And by the time the police got there late, like a minute or two later, it was just blood there. So Solomon did get away. So he's just going to cause problems, if not in the next episode, in the near future. So, but when it was all said and done, they ended up getting in contact with Diaz, basically saying, yeah, we got your money, basically get us in contact with Kurt and we'll give you your money back. And they finally did talk to Kurt, but it seemed like he really didn't care. He's like, do what you want about the money. And Diaz, I'm not going to fall to you wanting to get in contact with me or whatever. He's like, basically brings up the fact that he's like, there was a time in that house beside the water that is like, basically you had that gun in your mouth and I should have let you pull the trigger or something like that. So I don't know whether he's referring to a current moment where it's like this whole Liz situation, or is he talking about something in the past that might have something to do with Liz's mom that he's talking about. But it's like, I didn't know they had kind of a tight-knit past like that. Well, I guess it was kind of hinted at last episode, maybe? I don't know. But the real twist is that we find at the end of the episode, well, granted, they had Diaz kind of like bring Alexander's Kirk's shady business out to the light, to kind of saying he's subpoenaing him for his crimes. I don't remember, but it's basically kind of bringing all his crimes out to light. Basically, he does this, and Scottie will give him back his money and kind of make it look like it's coming from legitimate donations, that it's not the dirty money that it is. But the real twist at the end of the episode, we find out because Tom went there with the sole purpose went to Scottie's place with the sole purpose of killing her, because it's like, yeah, now that they've got access to Kirk, it's like, we don't need her anymore. And it's like, now it's time to make everyone that has something to do with Liz's death pay. And it turns out, because Reddington explains it to him, like, the fact is that he's Scottie's son. That Scottie's under the impression that her son died because basically he went missing when he was like a little boy. And he's like, you've known this all this time. Like, why are you just telling me this now? Because he's like, the reason why is because Scottie has some dark secrets, and I want to keep, you have to be protected from it, and you've got a little girl that needs to be protected too. So that's one reason why Reddington didn't tell him. And he's like, basically, if you want to find out the truth about yourself and your mom, it's like, you're going to have to let her live, but you can't tell her who you really are. And, Scottie was talking to him about her son, and he's like, I'm really sorry about your son, because she even offered to, like, oh, let's work together, but he turned her down. So it does make me wonder with the way she was acting, because, like, maybe she actually does know about Tom for real. Maybe she has her suspicions, but she's trying to get closer to him to see if those suspicions are right or not. Or maybe she's just completely clueless. Who knows? does make you wonder what those dark secrets are that Scottie has that are so dangerous. It's so interesting because, like, I brought up the fact is, because I could have sworn Tom brought it up, like, he thought that maybe she was Liz's mom, and it turns out to be his mom. It's very interesting. I also brought up in this episode the fact is during Agnes's christening that basically that he's glad that they're kind of like a family. Like him and the FBI is like him and Liz never had one, and I'm sure that Liz would be happy, having y'all as a family. He's like, granted, we might be a bit dysfunctional, at one point in time trying to kill each other, but still a family nonetheless. And I took it as Harold being the godparent, which is kind of no surprise. But I guess in some shape or form, maybe they're all godparents in some shape or form. The one we really saw was Harold, but maybe we didn't get to see everything. Maybe it was like everyone too, but I'm thinking really it was just Harold. So, but next week is the season finale, so crazy stuff is going to go down because Reddington is dead set on killing Kirk, and just no telling how things are going to turn out. And now moving on to Rush Hour. And in this week's episode, we have basically the cops are investigating a armed robbery of a armored car that Lee and Carter had stopped, which kind of got them a little bit of attention around the precinct, as well as slightly internet fame. I mean, the way they made it sound like was like, oh, the video blew up, but like it only had like 402 views, but it was like Badass Cop, which, Carter was loving it because it's like, yeah, like getting all this recognition. Because to him, he's like, he kind of talks about in his episodes, like he never really got much recognition. He never was kind of the butt of the joke for everyone. So this is kind of his first time. He kind of got sucked up into it. That's a big part of this episode, getting sucked up into the glory. He's up there being like, oh yeah, we did this. Like we prevented the biggest crime of ever. And then Captain Cole's like, I wasn't about to say that. He's like, you were going to. And then they're like, okay, leave it to Lee to say something. And Lee's like, we've accomplished nothing. We're still investigating. And it's like, he just completely shut it down because, like, you have Carter over here just feeling super hyped and enjoying it. It's like, oh, we did a good thing. But Lee's essentially like, nope, we didn't do jack squat. So what? There's no reason to celebrate. He just instantly killed it. Because to Lee, he initially is so fixated on the possibility of it being the Quantal, which Carter's super against that. I mean, because multiple times throughout the episode, he's trying to prove to him that it's not. Because truth be told, is Lee is being pushed by his own need to find the Quantal, take them down as soon as possible because he needs to get to his sister. And it turns out that it wasn't the Quantal behind this after all. I was constantly thinking like, okay, in the end it's going to prove to be that Lee was right. Because there were many different layers to this case. Apparently one of the drivers and, one of the people in the armored car was actually working with some people, like some Australians at he's the owner of like a club or whatever. He's in Australia, but he's kind of dealing drugs. And the guy that was in the back was helping him deliver drugs. I did like what Carter was saying. He said it's like freaking Australians. They come here and they take all our movie jobs. Chris Hemsworth. I forgot who was the other one he mentioned, but it's just like, that was kind of the first time I ever really heard that. Like someone just was being so mad at Australians for taking all the movie roles. And I also liked in this episode, it's like, okay, I'll be good cop and you be Chinese cop that shuts up. And then Lee later on is like, okay, I'll be good cop, you be black cop. And he's like, no, it's good cop and you be Chinese cop that shuts up. It's just racist what you said. And Lee's kind of like, wait, what? And also my favorite part is when they're taking down all those guys that are connected to that Australian guy and his goons. Because basically, finding out they had a drug operation, they were at like the bottom of his club and they were basically dealing with everyone. I really like the fact is, I like the fact is that literally Lee handled pretty much everyone and Carter took down that one big guy. It's just like, that's just how it always is. Lee is the definite badass cop taking down all those guys, but Carter still is just like, okay, I took down this big guy or whatever. But also like, there was that old man left and it's like, oh man, and Carter's over there picking a fight with him. I was like, he's an old man, Carter. That old man gets up and starts whooping his ass. I'm like, wow. And then Lee beats him up and Carter's like, and then Lee's like, that's why you should respect your elders, Carter. And he's like, Lee, you just beat up an old man. And he's like, you just got beat up by an old man, Carter. He's like, touche. It's like, that old man has some pretty nice moves on him for being an old man. One of my favorite parts in the episode is the fact is that Gerald's trying to break into a car in the middle of the day. Even Carter's like, you break into a car in the middle of the broad daylight. He's like, no, I'm trying to help out someone. They locked their keys in the car, and just came up with excuse after excuse after excuse. I feel like Carter just gives Gerald too much leeway. It's just like, in a situation like that, you took the crowbar from him, but you just let him walk away. It's like, I feel like any quote-unquote good cop wouldn't do something like that. But basically, we ended up finding out that basically everyone was involved on this. Even the guy that was in the front, the driver, even him and his son were in on it, because they basically were stuntmen in the past. So he hired other people to work with him to kind of, essentially, he wanted to lead. He knew like the guy in the back was delivering drugs, as well as he basically had the cops lead the cops to everyone else that was involved in everything. It's pretty genius, actually, when you break it down. It's like, to me, I was kind of suspicious of the son from the very beginning. I was just like, why? Because it's like that typical thing you do with crime dramas. It's like, I recognize that actor, and I feel like they wouldn't just put him in something. I'm sure you could say the same thing about a lot of things, but it's like, to me, it was like, automatically, I was like, I recognize him from, he was in that show, The Messengers, as well as Revolution. I was like, I recognize him. It's like, he's connected to this, isn't he? I don't know how. I didn't expect his dad to be in on it too. So I was expecting, like, when he was there talking to his dad, I thought his dad was going to, try and signal Carter and Lee to tell them, like, oh, his son's behind it. But no, he touched his son's hand and was like, oh, it's a beautiful moment. It's like, no, because they were working together. So another favorite part of mine was like, how so kind of almost self-centered Cole is, because she's basically like, me putting you two together was like the best thing ever, because they basically got like a dozen arrests in a single episode. So it's like, they did a great job. And it's basically like, Cole's like, I cannot believe how amazing I am, because I put you two together. I created a perfect tag team. And he's just like, oh, thanks, Lindsay. She's like, don't call me Lindsay. Because basically, because every time she was giving Carter an opportunity to talk at in front of the cameras and microphones to kind of, tell how everything is. I did love the fact is that Donovan kept screwing him over every time. He's like, Detective Lee and an unknown officer. And then Carter's like, unknown officer. And there was even a point, I forgot what it was he called him, but he even changed Carter's name, like Karkowski or some crap like that. It's just like, Carter just can't catch a break. And then finally, he was having those t-shirts made that were like, supposed to be like badass cop, because he was so full of himself, being like, yeah, I'm a badass cop. But instead of saying bad ass cop, like, oh, he's a badass, it said bad and then ass cop. And then Donald was like, don't worry, Carter, you'll always be the best ass cop in my book. So it kind of sucks on that front. And then at the very end, we see Kim kind of keeping an eye on Lee. That's what she's basically being told to. And he was saying, like, there will become a time soon where I'm going to have to ask you to do something very difficult, which we can only assume is to kill her brother. Essentially, her job is to make sure he's not interfering with their business. And it's just like, and that's something, like, hard that he's going to have her someday do sometime soon, is like, it's obviously to kill Lee. And it's just like, how far are you going to go to keep your cover? It's like, to me, it's like, I guess, like I said it before, I still think she should have come to her brother about this. On some levels, I get why she didn't. One, it's probably because she's like, I wanted to do this, and she knew that her brother, she knew that Lee would like try and talk her out of it. Or two, because she needed to legitimize her cover, because it's like, if even her brother thinks she's bad, then no one's going to question her loyalty to the Quantal. Like I said, still wish she had told him, though, because it's like, all the crap you're putting your brother through. I mean, it's like, he might not ever forgive you for this, like, when it's all said and done, when you do possibly eventually take down a Quantal, like, maybe he won't forgive you for putting him through all this heartbreak and not telling him the truth. I mean, he might be pissed at Cole, too, because Cole knows the truth, but, she was kind of told not to say anything, so. Like I said, it is very interesting in this episode, because we have, like, Carter telling Lee to kind of be more open and tell him everything, but it's like the moment like Lee's dead set on believing it's the Quantel behind this, like Carter's just quick to shut him down. It's like he wasn't being a very good partner in this episode. He was so concerned because he's so concerned about his own self-image. He wants to be, he wants to be a badass cop. He wants to be treated like, he's kind of like I said, the butt of everybody's jokes at the precinct. So, any opportunity, this is kind of his one opportunity to kind of really shine. So. But it's like, them together make what I would call the most unlikely badass cop. Them together makes the most unlikely badass cop. Because they make a very good team, but, that's just how I feel about it. But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.